Hey, welcome to the food truck. It's Taco Tuesday. We've got the truck parked outside, and we're serving tacos. Lots of tacos being served. Um, Welcome everybody on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon on in February. My son asked me the other day, guys. He said, now he's 12, so I'm gonna preface this with saying this. He's 12. He said, "Hey, Dad, how many months have 28 days?" How many months have 28 days? So you can post that. If you know that answer, you can post that. Thanks, Henry. He was actually surprised when I said all of them. He thought he would trick me on that, but he didn't trick me, and I didn't trick, well, some of you, but maybe I didn't trick most of you. But yes, all of them have 28 days, and we actually get a bonus day this month. So your sales compared to last year should do well with an extra day of sales. Welcome to Taco Tuesday. Welcome to this webinar on Amazon advertising. A big serving of Amazon advertising data that really matters. What I want to know is, let's start off with kind of, where are you from? Tell us where you're from in the chat as we start to introduce ourselves. And I'll start. For those that don't know me, my name is Jeff Cohen. I am based out of Chicago, Illinois. I run marketing for Seller Labs. I've been with Seller Labs since, I don't know, 5, almost 6 years. I've been selling in some way, shape on Amazon since 2005. Yeah, you heard that right. That wasn't a mistake. 2005, I've been involved in selling in some way, shape, or form. And I'm happy to be hosting you today. Why don't you guys go ahead and meet Andrew? You want to introduce yourself, Andrew?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Andrew Evans. I'm one of the product managers here with Seller Labs. I'm actually out of Charleston, South Carolina, so a little bit better weather than what Jeff has in Chicago. I've been working in software for about 10 years now in various spaces and with Seller Labs for almost 6 months now. But work with the development teams to try to continue to deliver products that you use and love too. So really enjoy working with the team in software also. And I'll kick it over to Brett.
Everyone, I'm Brett Darby. I'm an account director here with our managed services team at Seller Labs. Based out of Madison, Wisconsin, formerly a Seattle native. And I've been working with Amazon sellers since about 2012 to meet their goals on Amazon and help them scale their businesses.
Awesome. So this kind of came up as a conversation that the three of us were having while talking about our advertising, our advertising product on Amazon, and the managed services team that we have at Seller Labs. So Brett's team manages thousands of campaigns every month for over 100 clients, and we use that kind of hands-on interactive to learn what's important to clients and to build more functionality into our tool. We also try to use that information to help when education becomes a problem. And this is a bunch of stuff that we thought, it's really a great debate in terms of what data is important. So we're going to start by asking you to rate your own advertising skills. It's always kind of fun to ask this question because I like to see kind of, how do you rate yourself as an advertiser on Amazon? Be honest, because my reality is that most people rate themselves higher than their actual skill set. And that's not to knock any of you, but a lot of people come to us, they say, oh, I'm an expert, I've been doing this for a long time. And then we look at their campaigns, they've got a lot of rudimentary problems. So let's just be honest in our sharing of this information today. So looks like about 80% of you say you're running ads, but think you could be doing it better. So that's great. We'll go ahead and move back into, I don't know how to close the chat. Let's see. All right, we'll just keep going. Hopefully my screen goes back on. So thank you for sharing that. My second question that I would ask you, you can do this in the chat, would be for you to tell us, how are you managing your ads? Are you doing it? Are you using a software? Are you using a consultant to manage your ads? So go ahead and throw in the chat and tell us whether you're doing it on your own, whether you're using a software, or whether you're using a consultant. So kind of a mix of people doing it on their own and using it, using a software. Some people going into Seller Central. A lot of you kind of doing it on your own. Let's see, David's using a consultant. Cheryl, yeah, we know who you use. Cheryl uses us. Let's see, some people are using Ignite. Awesome. That's really helpful for us to get a sense of kind of where you guys are at and how you're managing this tool. So let's get into this data. Here's the approach that we took in putting this webinar together today. We are looking at the terminology. What's the terminology that we need? What's the difference between the terminology? And then I kind of asked Brett, as the manager of our managed services group, to think about things in terms of how does he look at a single product, right? So in my mind with Amazon, it's always easy to break things down to be a single product. So I have one ASIN, I don't have parent child. How do I set up how do I look at data to make decisions on that? And then how do I start to scale it? So now I have a family of products or a catalog of products. And so we're going to take that approach with you guys and try to break it down to a single product, a family, and then a catalog, and how this data impacts each of those different levels. And then if you have any questions along the way, just go ahead and throw them in the chat. We'll try to get to them either during the presentation or at the end. And as you guys always know, this is going to be recorded. And I've got a special offer for you guys at the end. Not an internet marketer, but I do have a special offer. I think you're going to want to see it. It's something that Brett has agreed to do. So today we're going to focus on three main terms: the ACOS, the ROAS, and the TACO. And what you're looking at is a screenshot from Ignite, where we have all these numbers broken down for you. And one of the challenges between using a tool or using Seller Central is that Seller Central maybe has the data in it, but it doesn't necessarily aggregate all of these data points in a way that you can see, filter, and take action on. So we're kind of looking at how Ignite does this as a way for you to kind of see how we manage accounts in our managed services group and how our clients do. We also are, so you're asking about organic sales versus advertising sales. So that is actually built into our dashboard as well. So that's built into there too. So let's go into ACOS. So let's just go for a straight definition of ACOS. It's your advertising cost of sale. So a basic mathematical equation is total ad spend divided by attributed ad sales. So that's the ad sales that Amazon is attributing to the ad that you have. That comes out to your ACOS. A lot of banter in the space about whether I need ACOS or whether I need ACOP or whether I need TACoS. So this is what ACOS is. Brett, do you want to give a little bit more of like, okay, that's a definition, but let's talk about like what that means and how we look at that number?
Absolutely, Jeff. And I mean, ACOS is a great barometer for how your advertising performance is going. You can use it at a SKU level, at a campaign level, keyword level. It's a great metric to understand and interpret that performance. But it is ad-centric. It's solely within the space of advertising. So it gets rid of all the peripheral, the noise. It doesn't have any of the total sales factored in. So it's just kind of a snapshot of your ad performance. It doesn't necessarily convey the true impact that advertising is having on your business. You know, are you growing top-line revenue, or are you simply targeting a vanity metric and going after ACOS because it looks good? And so I've got a really simple example here down at the bottom. Kept spend the same $100 in each month just to keep the math simple, and then showing that those sales increase each month by a little bit. So $200 from January to February, and then another $300 going into March. You can really easily see that ACOS is decreasing. So on the surface, that looks like a really good thing. And as we go through this webinar, you'll see why maybe that's not the full picture and the full story. But you can see that and see that 10 to 8 to 7 is definitely a good progression, that ACOS is declining, and most people would see that as a win. The other thing to really remember here is that the target ACOS is going to change depending upon your goals. So launching a new product, you're going to want to consider a different target ACOS than if you're, say, advertising against an effectively selling product that's one of your top items in your catalog. The other really important thing here to remember, Jeff, is that it includes sales for other ASINs in your catalog. So you're advertising your pair of shoes, and somebody buys the add-on shoelaces for $5, you're going to see that $5 reflected in that ad metric in your ACOS.
Yeah. So besides making fun of the fact that I said a cost instead of ACoS, Greg had a question, which is a question we get on almost every one of these webinars when we talk about this, which is, what's a general guideline for considering an effective ACoS? And I think like this is a great debate because everybody wants to know, like, what should they target? So when people ask you that from the managed services side, how do you answer that question?
But it depends on their goals. So it depends on whether they're growing in the market and they're trying to introduce that new product, or whether or not they're just trying to get more efficiency out of the ads that they're currently running. So we like to first define what that goal is before we really set any hard line and say this is the target we're going for. But once we're able to look at the historical performance and deduce some realistic goals, it's generally something that's going to be scaling, or a singular goal that we ebb and flow around based on the seasonality. A lot of products, they have a boost coming in December where they get a lot more sales. And so you're able to achieve those goals a lot more easily than you are maybe in the beginning half of the year.
Great. Thank you. Let's go into how we target ACoS using Ignite. Andrew, do you want to kind of go into how Ignite uses this number as a way to help you target your ads?
Sure. So for those that aren't familiar with it, we do call it target ACoS, and that's at a campaign level that we're trying to articulate that goal. The biggest difference, the big differentiator between us and other tools is this goal actually will help drive a lot of what we call suggestions in Ignite. Those suggestions could be bid modifications, they could be negating keywords, or they could be even moving keywords or search terms from auto campaigns and manual campaigns. And if those aren't familiar with it, the goal of each suggestion is to help really optimize the performance of those individual campaigns. And again, to just point, the way we do it is through the target ACoS metric. That is driven and will help drive also the frequency and the aggression of each of those suggestions. And we'll talk more about them in detail. But the big differentiator for us is that we do help capture that goal. So we're not just making general suggestions. They're based on the goals that you set for each of those campaigns. And to echo what Brett said, no two campaigns may be alike, right? So depending on what your goals are for each of those campaigns will help drive the Ignite product to help with what type and how often those suggestions do come up too.
Awesome. So let's kind of show a little bit, like, once you've set that oh my Lord, once you've set that average ACoS or that target ACoS that you're going for, then it allows the machine learning within the system to start to make suggestions for you. And what I like to say is there's really two types of ad managers in the Amazon ecosystem. There's the super data geek. That's Brett. I'll just call him out here. He wants to look at spreadsheets of data and macros and filtering and all these things to make changes. And then there's kind of I want to spend a little bit of time working on this, and I want the system to tell me how it can be smarter for me. That's the Jeff way of managing ads. And so suggestions kind of helps the people who are looking for some recommendations along the way, right?
Right. So the suggestion engine itself is going to be the driver for a lot of that too. The screenshot that you'll see here is actually numerous suggestions that we've recommended across multiple campaigns for one of our current customers. So really the idea is that there's a lot of things that you could really look at when it comes to PPC and optimizing campaigns, and suggestions just make it easier to determine where you focus your attention. They can be reviewed individually. We have bulk mechanisms. You can actually select multiple suggestions. And we really use two lead indicators for where to really focus your attention. We call it confidence and importance. But the idea is that with confidence is that we're building data to make each of these suggestions, right? It takes time to develop a lot of the information you need to understand changes to your campaigns and how those will positively impact your goals. So confidence tries to tell you that, hey, we believe we have enough data that we think this will have a positive impact on your performance of your campaigns. With importance, we indicate how strong of an impact that could be too. We really try to prioritize your high money savers. So you'll see that as a percentage for both the importance and confidence. And that will really be dictated by the suggestion engine. First, the things that we think will have the most impact on your campaigns, and then descending from there too.
Yeah, so Jim's asking what the target ACoS is in this example. And I don't know if you know that, but it really doesn't matter, right? Like the suggestions are based off of your data. It's based off of mathematical equations of your number of clicks, your number of impressions, and the transactions, your profit margin, all those things that are built into the equation. So
yeah, that's right.
these are a $20. Most of these are a $20 product. They're probably at a 20 to 30% ACoS target. So it's low dollar, type of product.
Yeah, and sorry, Jeff. The only other thing I was going to comment is that we provide these suggestions across multiple campaigns and campaign groups too. So if you wanted to differentiate your campaigns, you can within these views and individually manage suggestions. But we also deliver them so you can advertise or select those in bulk too if necessary. So it could have been multiple campaigns that was actually reviewing.
And that's kind of what we were saying earlier about you can take the heavy data view or you can take the individual data view. So the second number that we're going to look at is the TACoS. And the TACoS is the total advertising cost of sale, sometimes also referred to as the ACOP, which is the advertising cost of product. And this, Brett, is a little bit of a different number. So do you want to explain this one?
Yeah, and Jeff, the math is actually very similar. So the math, the big change here is you're going from looking at attributed sales or sales that came through that advertising platform to looking at the overall sales. So you can look at TACoS at a overall account level. You can do it at a campaign level. You can do it at a product group level, or even down to a singular product level. If you've got families of products, maybe size or color variations, I'd encourage you to look at it at the family level. That seems to make the most sense for making any sort of data-driven insight from that. But the important thing here to remember is it's not ad-centric. So this isn't only looking at the impact from the advertising sales. This is looking at overall. And we'll have some examples later that'll walk through this. But in this example below, you'll see those same metrics. We were running a $100 budget each month against these products. And you see that our sales, the total sales, actually went down. So while we noticed before that our ACoS was going down, the other problem here is that we've also seen that the total sales were also decreasing. So in return, you get a increasing TACoS. And so that's generally a bad thing. When you see your ACoS falling and you see your TACoS climbing, it generally means you're doing something wrong. Now, what that is can be a number of things. You can be too conservative. You're not pushing enough. You could be cutting out big swaths of targets that were helping you before. So maybe you negated something that shouldn't have been negated. Really deducing what that problem is a little bit of a process. So I won't go too into depth with that. But the important thing about TACoS is how easy it is to digest, Jeff. It's really easy to digest TACoS. And the way you do this is you look at your margin, you calculate your TACoS using the formula we gave you, and then you just subtract it out. And that'll give you your actual profit. So that can help you.
If TACoS are causing you heartburn, then you've got a real problem, right?
Exactly. But it simplifies the math. It sizes it the same as your unit cost, so that it's really easy to understand what that impact is across all units sold during that period.
All right. So let's get into return on ad spend, and then I want to kind of have you explain to everybody how all three of these numbers kind of work a little bit differently and how you use them. How you use each of them when you're looking at a campaign. And so the return on ad spend is every dollar of advertising and how much you return. It's typically a dollar amount. Return on ad spend is typically a dollar amount that you're getting from a particular campaign. And even though the green box is on the wrong one, it should be the green box over the $5.37. We'll fix that before we send out the slides. But let's talk a little bit more about ROAS and how that compares to the spend, the TACoS, the ACoS, and such.
Bless you.
Sorry.
Yeah, bless you. No, and so ROAS is also ad-centric. So it's focusing just on the advertising side. So what I like to do is pair up TACoS along with either ROAS or ACoS, so you can really understand how those two are kind of ebbing and flowing and figuring out which one is driving success for your brand. But it's really, the example I love here is just, if you were to put $1 into a vending machine and it spit back a 5, wouldn't you keep putting dollars into that vending machine to a certain point? If you had a couple extra ones in your back pocket, toss them in there. That's really the way you can look at ROAS very simply. You're putting in $1 into this advertising engine and it's spitting back out $10 in January, spitting out 12 in February and 15 in March. So in theory, you're making more money for each dollar you're spending on advertising in that period.
Awesome. So let's talk about when do I use this data? So let's talk about ACOS versus TACoS. When are you using that? When you're working with a client, are you specifically using one? Are you using both? And how do you kind of use these different data points?
Yeah, great question, Jeff. And we'll use the terminology that works best with that client. Some bigger brands focus on ROAS, and we'll stick with that. Smaller brands generally use ACOS, but we're always measuring TACoS ourselves as well, and it's in all of our reporting to clients so they can understand it and start to use that themselves for their own needs. But I use ACOS, like Andrew mentioned, to make sure we have targets set. It's the barometer that drives success. So you need to set it somewhere so you can start making some optimizations off of it. We obviously increase or decrease it based on those goals. So if we're in a growth month and we're leading up to a big promotion, say we're getting ready for Prime Day, we'll look at increasing that target slightly to make sure that we're driving success. And then when we're in an efficiency period and we're looking to capitalize on every dollar we're putting into that engine, we're going to make sure that we're decreasing that target over time and cutting out things that aren't working.
I was going to say, I think one of the things that you and I chat about a lot when we're talking about clients and expectations, right, is a lot of clients come to us with these expectations that that advertising can cure their problems. And I think that it's important to understand that when you're setting a KPI metric, so a KPI, for those that are not familiar, is a key performance indicator. We use those a lot to determine if we're being successful. So Andrew uses those when developing the software to determine if people are using a feature. Brett uses those with a client to determine if we're managing to their expectation. Key performance indicators are used all over the place. As you are setting those for your advertising campaign, what's really critical is that you are that you're using KPIs that are driving the behavior and the goal that you're going for. And we've seen this a lot with customers who come in and they go, I want to drive down my ACOS, and then we work to drive down their ACOS, and then they go, my sales have decreased. And we're like, well, yeah, your sales decrease when you drive down your ACOS because it's an inverse. It's not always an inverse effect, but one can affect the other. And so that's why it's sometimes important when you're looking at this that you set your overall goal. My goal is to maintain the growth of my product while reducing my ACOS. Okay, great. Now we're trying to determine efficiency of velocity at the optimal ACOS level, as opposed to just trying to focus on one key metric and letting another metric slip.
Exactly. And we see the most successful clients of ours have defined a TACoS goal, and they have an idea of the percentage that they want to focus on out of their overall sales. And they focus secondarily on the actual ACOS goal. There's an idea of where they want to be, usually a range, but they're not hard fixed on a number and saying we have to hit 20 or 30%, say.
Yeah, so I think, go ahead. I was going to ask you to explain this chart, because I think that sometimes this is something that you'll see where if you start to focus on one number, it can impact another number. So your ACOS is actually going down, but your TACoS is going up, but your return on ad spend came down. So, you still have to be comfortable with this, and you can still rate success by looking at these different numbers.
Yeah, and these are the examples from those previous slides. I mean, we're looking at the same ACOS, ROAS, and TACoS figures and the same spend and sales. This just kind of puts that into a full picture for you. You can see that ACOS decreasing looked great on the surface, and that ROAS increasing looked great on the surface as well. But when we actually factor in the total sales and the top line revenue this account was seeing, things were not nearly as healthy as they looked when we solely looked at the advertising side of things. And so it's important that you've kind of got your eyes on both sides, and you're making sure to define an overall goal with your TACoS, and then some secondary goals with either ROAS or ACOS.
Yeah, so Josh asked a question, and I normally save these for the end, but I like his question. He said, I'm assuming efficiency equals profitability, assuming every business is in business to make a profit. Why is there no consideration for fully loaded COGS and pulling that into our dashboard? So can you talk about how you should be thinking about this as a vendor and implementing specifically into TACoS and ACOS your COGS and understanding how much profit you have within a product?
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely have to consider that, Jeff. You have to take kind of a cold data-driven look at this. You can't necessarily just focus on the fluff. We hear a lot of marketers come to us and say how great their product is relative to everything else. That's subjective. It's nothing that we can actually verify. You have to look at your actual financials and understand whether or not you're moving things in the right direction. Again, we see our most successful brands, they're looking at both sides of that picture, and they're making sure that they're understanding there's efficiencies that can be found in transportation costs and making sure they keep inventory levels at a great ratio. And then making sure they're also doing the right things on their advertising sides. You can't just focus on one. You have to be looking at both sides of this and figuring out where the most opportunities lie for you.
Yeah, and that's really why we've now brought all of our products together into Stellar Labs Pro, because the Stellar Labs Pro side of the equation gives you the access to start looking at the COGS side of your business. So within Stellar Labs Pro, you get access to Quantify. Within Quantify, you can enter the COGS of your business. It also brings in some of your advertising reports and gives you some more of this detailed information of how advertising is doing in the overall profitability. But you're absolutely right, Josh. You can't just look at advertising without looking at the profitability of the product. Yes, Michael, 4 products in one, the power of 4. So if you want to upgrade, no, this isn't a sales pitch, but if you do want to upgrade from your current product to the full solution of our software, go ahead and message our support team, and we'll go ahead and help you with that and give you a really good deal. Okay, so let's talk about staying organized. Andrew, do you want to talk a little bit about how Ignite uses organization to help manage different ad campaigns?
Sure. So the view that we're seeing right now is just the campaign manager page, essentially in Ignite. It's going to provide quick access to all of your campaigns, but then you can then filter down into the campaigns that you want to specifically look at. Depending on how your campaigns are organized, you can do that by campaign groups. We'll talk more about what those look like later too, by nomenclature, so you can filter and search by campaign names, and then also by performance. So we provide data filters to let you quickly see which campaigns may not be performing to the level of others or to your actually target ACOS or some other performance metric, and let you quickly filter and make changes to those directly in this table. So no bulk reporting, no up and down CSV files. It's a much faster way for you to look at the campaigns across multiple performance metrics, then make changes directly into our campaign manager too.
Awesome. And then we also have a groups view. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So talk a little bit about it, but groups is just essentially a way for you to organize your campaigns. And to Brett's point, there's a lot of different ways you can do it: by family, by seasonality, by holiday. That just allows you a little bit more organization when you're using other areas of the Ignite product. So you could make goals by what your advertising strategies are. You could make these groups potentially by different target ACOS bundles if you do want to organize them that way for your strategy. And then you can also just do them by product or brand. So we see it 100 different ways. But Ignite lets you quickly manage those and also then use those groups within various parts of the product. And we also let you add a campaign to more than one group. So we don't provide any rigidity around how much the campaigns can be used. You can put it in your strategy group as well as your brand group and your holiday group if necessary. So a lot of flexibility when it comes to groups. And the better your groups are and they align with your strategy, the better you're going to be able to use them across the Ignite product.
Awesome. And I think that, the biggest, I want to make sure I share this, which is that groups and portfolios are different. So portfolios is a bid strategy terminology used within Seller Central. Our groups is more of a way to collect multiple campaigns together for more effective filtering. So make sure that you don't confuse those two. I want to make sure everybody kind of gets that. So let's talk about a few little extra features that people might not be aware of within Ignite that kind of help in some of the abilities to target and to determine profitability.
Ignite with bidding and keywords, but We also provide information today on placement for sponsored products. Today, those tables are surfaced within campaigns. We are showing that data on the dashboard too. But it's another way that you can advertise on the Amazon space. We're looking at more functionality to allow you to do bid control and other things across your campaigns and not just tweaking and managing the keywords that are part of the campaigns. But we understand that placement is important and another facet of advertising that we'll bring into the Ignite product too as well.
Awesome. And then you want to talk a little bit about ad scheduling?
Yeah, sure. So ad scheduling, day parting, whichever terminology you prefer for this. I see someone actually already mentioned that they use this. The goal with ad scheduling is really to optimize the time of day that you think your campaigns will actually perform better. So by group or by campaign, you can dictate day of the week or time of day that you want these campaigns to actually deliver into the Amazon product. So it essentially pauses the campaign based on the structure for you. Once you set it, you can forget it. So the best thing that this allows you to do is then go focus your efforts elsewhere. We understand that there's a lot of things that go into selling, but one of the things we want to try to help you do is optimize your budgets and use those budgets accordingly when you think you're going to be delivering the most value and actually delivering ads that lead to conversions for you within the product. These are saved for you. It's automatic afterwards. It's set across each campaigns. And we actually see a lot of success when like products or groups actually share similar types of ad schedules too. So definitely some cool feature functionality there that Amazon doesn't necessarily provide that we think makes us a big differentiator too.
Yeah, and the real value of that is of the ad scheduling is the ability to I was talking to a client who was telling me that they never see any sales during over the night. All their sales are during the day. So why compete with everybody who's trying to put ads out overnight? Place your ad spend when the majority of your conversions are coming. Now, some people don't want to go all the way to hiring a consultant like managed services to run their ads, but they want to add some automation to their ads. And so they've come in, they've set their ACOS. They have an understanding of their confidence and their importance, and they want to be making some changes. That's where the automation comes in. So let's talk a little bit about how they can kind of set up their own automation to kind of build their own ad manager.
We talked about suggestions a lot, but once you start incorporating a lot of campaigns and a lot of keywords, that can be a lot to manage when it comes to individually looking and reviewing keywords and their performance day in and day out. And we've built automation to help with that. So once you become more familiarized with suggestions and how they run, you can set thresholds for each of these automations. So within a campaign, you can dictate once a suggestion has reached this level of confidence and importance, you can automatically have the system approve it for you. We do provide a full history back to review the suggestions that were accepted or automated by our platform if you ever want to come check under the hood. But the goal is, again, to let you focus on the other things that are important to you when it comes to selling. So Ignite continues to find ways to automate not just suggestions, but other facets of the business. And today we can definitely assist with those bulk exchanges for suggestions rather than having to individually accept and manage them too.
Awesome. Now I want to show. I'm going to jump through keywords by ASIN really quickly because I want to move along and show you two examples. But this is a new feature that was recently added to Ignite that allows you to use all of the data from Scope, our Scope tool, that can help you get additional keyword suggestions inside of your campaign. And so you simply add the ASIN. It's going to give you recommendations, and then you can add it directly into your campaign. So, Brett, real quickly, so we can jump into this case study here. How many keywords do you guys recommend for a campaign? I know it's a question that comes up a lot.
Yeah, it actually depends on what you're trying to achieve, but we like to see a smaller number. Those people who toss 200 or 500 keywords in a campaign and just hope to get some results from it generally aren't segmenting that data enough to really have any meaningful insights come from it. Between 5 and 10 is kind of the sweet spot. Obviously, there's campaigns with single keywords in there that are broad match that work very, very well.
Awesome. So I want to show you guys an example, which really it's a project Brett and I did for a client. where we went to really analyze their data, and it starts to really demonstrate to you the difference between sessions, session percentage, which is your conversion rate, ACOS, and ACOP or TACoS. And when we looked at this client, they had a very large catalog, and I think they were spending somewhere around $30,000 a month was their ad spend. And they wanted to get an understanding of what was working and what was not working within their data. And what we were able to do was we were able to first look at this and kind of how we walked through this example was we started looking at, well, what's converting and what's not converting, and then what has enough traffic and what doesn't have enough traffic. And what we were able to find was that when we looked at all of this, that they had 276 ASINs out of 361. So they had about 25% of their catalog that they weren't even advertising. We found some immediate savings, $1,100. We say that's not bad, but remember, that's not bad in comparison to the $30,000 they're spending. If you're spending at $2,000 and you have $1,000 in wasted ad spend, that's a lot. And then they had a whole bunch of ASIN targeting campaigns with 0 sales. And so we found some like high level big wins that they could do immediately. But what really became powerful, Brett, was how we were able to start driving down into some of this. So can you share a little bit about the underfunded, overfunded, specifically talking about how you used ACOS and ACOP, which is what we called it in this particular presentation, or TACoS?
Yeah, and ACOP and TACoS are interchangeable, the same term. But essentially what we did was we downloaded their business report data, we downloaded their advertising data and some inventory data to analyze it in a full picture and really understand what was driving success and what wasn't. We were able to marry these data sets together so we could look at it objectively and figure out where there were opportunities to maybe push a little bit more aggressively and areas where maybe we needed to cut back. So this underfunded bucket is products where they had a strong conversion rate and there's clearly demand for the product. And we were able to manipulate the ads in a way that could drive more traffic. It's not a problem with the product. It's just a problem with the way they're marketing it and advertising it. And we see that they had an ACOS target that was kind of prohibiting that growth. They had certain items in here where the ACOS was 40, 50%, and they were starting to flinch and get worried about it. But in reality, when we looked at their TACoS, it's less than 1%. And so there's a lot more opportunity to find other ways to get that product out there. So with some of these, it's finding additional keywords that we weren't targeting appropriately. With other ones, it's finding those ASINs and those sponsored brand campaigns that'll get it in front of the right audiences.
Okay, so this one kind of blows me away, the overfunded, and how people can kind of let their ACOS get as high as it gets in some situations.
Yeah, and these are some extreme examples. I mean, these are coming in at over 100% ACOS. You might have some in your catalog that come through at 50, 60%, and it's making you a little bit nervous. When you actually go look at TACoS, it's even far higher, and you should be very concerned. It all depends upon your catalog. But these items were clearly ones where we're just driving excess traffic. We're driving that conversion rate down. They already had a low conversion rate. And it was clear that some decisions needed to be made about these products. That's, for that company to decide whether they want to cut them out of their catalog or just be more conservative with their advertising. But either way, it highlighted some areas of ineffective ad spend.
Yeah, and one thing Brett and I talk about a lot, you can tell Brett and I just geek out on this stuff, is that you can't be emotional about a product. You have to have a metric-driven approach to how your product is going to be successful. So don't just straight up look at this and say, but this has been my top selling product for the last 3 years. Look at this and say, is it driving me the profitability that I want? Is it part of a larger catalog picture of something that I have to have? There's a lot of potential reasons that you may want to. But we also found missed opportunities.
Yep. And these are a number of products that clearly had a high number of sessions. So they had people coming in and looking at these detail pages, but they weren't running ads against them. For most all of them, they had a strong conversion rate. And so in reality, we need to drive extra traffic to these listings. It'll in turn bring that conversion rate down slightly. But as long as that doesn't actually drive it to the floor, you're in a good place. You should see your overall sessions increasing, your total sales increasing, and you should be writing that against your TACoS goal. So 5% TACoS goal, keep pushing that against that.
Yeah, Andrew, and you want to talk about how you can use smart filters within Ignite to find underperforming and overperforming?
Sure. So, I personally don't like CSV files and Excel files quite as much as I like using a fun product. So one thing we've tried to incorporate is a lot of the work that goes behind the heavy lifting that you have to do to find those key performances that we saw on those other slides. We've built it right into Ignite. So the smart filters that we've got highlighted are just recommendations for what we see as good performers and poor conversion rates for keywords. Within Ignite, that does allow you to quickly drill down to the information you need to see. Suggestions will also help you with making these changes. But again, if you like touching the information and looking at the data yourself, this is a quick way to do it. And then from here, once your results are returned, you can make changes. So you can quickly modify bids, make negative keywords, move to different campaigns. So the goal is for us to try to let you focus on the things that we believe are performing above or below what your expectations are, and then let you quickly make changes within the tables too.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, like a lot of these were built off of the types of optimization that Brett's team does. And so now the kicker, because I want to just be clear, because some people say, well, then why should I use a managed service? I can just use your tool. You can use our tool instead of a managed service, or you can use our managed service over a tool. The difference is the human touch that comes to the technology. And so these are preset filters. They're preset numbers that you can use to create your filtering, and they work, but sometimes they need to change. And so if you're looking for I want to follow a simple formula, this is a great way to start. If you're looking for I want somebody who's talking to me about my goals and adjusting these filtering categories and metrics, we actually have smart filters for every one of our clients. They have preset parameters that each client is using that's set at a campaign level, not even at an account level. So it just determines what level of efficient, or what level of detail you want placed into your account. So I'm going to pause on this slide before I show you guys something here. And Lauren actually asked an awesome question, Brett. So I thought it was a good time to ask her question. She said, what is the next most important metric after ACOS and ACOP or TACoS?
Oh, that's a tricky one, because it really does depend upon the category. There's category
that says it depends.
Yeah, well, it does depend occasionally. In this particular case, I will have to defer and say it really depends on the category you're selling in. It could be your click-through rate, and that might be within the scope of looking at particular keywords. So if we're looking at your top performing keywords, that might be a great barometer to figure out what we need to do differently. But I think one area that we didn't touch on too heavily here is those placement reports. I think analyzing those placement reports and figuring out where you perform best and optimizing against those is the biggest missed opportunity. I know it's kind of an indirect answer and not totally an answer to a singular metric, but that's an area where we just don't see sellers evolving as quickly as Amazon evolved their tool set.
Yeah, and I think I would answer that question by probably saying, and this is where it does depend, but I would say that it starts at your business reports. So how are the individual ASINs performing from a conversion perspective? Because you can sit here and try to optimize the heck out of your ACOS, your TACO, your ACOP, your ROAS, but if the overall conversion just isn't good, then that's where you should be starting before you even, so it's like, it's not what number's next. It's like, did you remember to look at conversion before you started getting into TACoS? So if you look at this at an individual ASIN level, you're starting with the conversion of the product. You're starting with the session data of the product. You're understanding how it's performing with whatever you're doing. Like, what's your baseline? Then you want to set a goal for what you're trying to do. And then your metrics, your KPIs from that point should be based on the goal that you set. And then as you're starting to target into that, are you decreasing your ACOS, but you're hurting your overall sessions? So you have to look at kind of all of these numbers in a way across the ASIN that allows you to have the complete picture of what's going on. Because as I explained in an example earlier, one number can impact positively or negatively a different number, and you have to kind of keep your eye on all those balls as you're trying to advertise.
Yeah, and one thing to put on that, Jeff, is really a high ACOS can mean two things. Either you have to buy too many clicks in order to get that conversion, which means you have a low conversion rate, or those clicks cost too much relative to your product price. It's just simple math. It's either too many clicks or the cost is too high for those clicks, and you just have to deduce which it is so you can know where to go next.
Great. So Henry just asked, should I attend Resonate? I absolutely believe that everybody on this webinar should attend Resonate. Even if you're looking to come to one of our local events, the local events that we have in a particular city are typically targeted towards workshop type of events. Resonate is about 100 Amazon sellers. I think 120 is the max in the room. We do vet our sellers, so we are looking for sellers that are coming that are legitimate professional sellers. It's not just a room full of people trying to sell you. And we push for very high level content. So even a higher level than the content we were providing today is what we provide at Resonate. So definitely think about that and consider it. So Brett, I promised people at the beginning of the webinar something, and no one's seen this. It's something new. And it's something that we've started rolling out to some of our managed service clients, and you've offered to do it for people on this webinar today. So can you talk a little bit about our the way we analyze data and what people can do if they want to get this data analyzed for their own campaign?
Yeah, so essentially what we've created here is a tool that helps our team understand and digest all of the information that's available to you through Amazon advertising reports. Helps us consolidate that down into a couple different visuals and tables that can help us understand where opportunities lie for you. It'll point out areas like wasted spend. It'll point out your top performing keywords. It'll allow you to also query this data yourself. So you not only get a PDF version of this report, but you actually get a version you can see live in the browser and make changes to. So you want to filter it down to look at specific SKUs and just get a SKU level breakdown to compare items in your catalog. It'll do that for you. If you want to compare campaigns or keywords, same thing, it does it all. And if you go to that next slide, you can see a little bit more on it. Obviously, it's got a high level summary and some table views, but it also does things like break out your keywords and targeting, both the automatic and manual side, as well as ASIN targets. And then it's also going to give us a great table that shows us your bid relative to your average CPC. So you can look for a high disparity there to know that you're ranking well and indexed well or perform well for that keyword, or look for a very low discrepancy and see that you're basically going to pay what you're bidding against. It's a great way to understand your account. It's a great way for my team to provide you with some insights. And feel free and submit this report to us. If you want to go to the next slide, Jeff. I will do the first 5 myself. So if you get yours over really quick, you'll actually get my hands and my eyes on it. After that, I'm going to have some team members who do this report regularly help me with it. But just go to your Seller Central account. On the Campaign Manager tab, the third ribbon in, it says Bulk Operations. You're going to want to download that bulk file. Just get that CSV, attach it to an email, and send it to sales@sellerlabs.com with a subject line that says TACoS Tuesday. That'll let us know what that's about, and we'll make sure that our team analyzes it. Those who have a high enough amount of data in their report are actually going to get a personalized follow-up. But if you're spending $50 and you just started your campaigns, odds are there's not enough statistically relevant data in your campaigns to really warrant a 15, 20-minute call. But definitely get this over to us. Again, the first 5 I'll do myself. After that, I'm going to get some help on it, Jeff.
Yeah, and if you want to include your phone number on that, you can as well. So we've done this. We've offered a similar type of report in the past, and the problem is that you all sit here on this and you go, okay, cool, I'll do that later. Why don't you do this? I'm going to leave this screen up. We're going to go into Q&A. So while we're in Q&A, open up a tab, start going into Seller Central, and go and do this now. And so if you're interested in this report being ran for you, do it now, because you know as well as I do that if you say, okay, I'll come back to this later, guess what? You never will. And if you, so Henry just said, how do I pull the report again? It's on your screen. It's right here on your screen, step-by-step instructions of how to go in and how to pull this data and what to do. So let's leave this up and let's go jump into questions. We've got a few minutes left. Okay, so we always start at the end and then work our way to the top. So let's go to the top and work our way down. I think we covered this, but let's just say my ACOS is 20%. On the other hand, I have some less than 10%. So should I increase my BD to reach 20%? That's my ACOS. After how many unsuccessful clicks would you turn off a keyword? Let's stick to that one. How many clicks unsuccessful do you look at before you turn off a keyword, or how do you start negativing keywords based on unsuccessful clicks?
Yeah, so I would be looking for a significant amount in a short period. So ideally, you've launched the campaign and you're able to see the first 25 clicks or so didn't result in a sale. Between 25 and 50 really depends upon what you're actually targeting. If you're in a highly competitive category, like let's say you start selling your own running shoe and you're competing against the likes of Nike and Ultra and Adidas, you're probably going to want to let that go a little bit higher. And so maybe you're aiming for 30, 35 clicks before you negate it. But if you're in a category where you feel like you're very competitive and your product is retail ready, I might cut that out in as few as 20 clicks in a short period.
Yeah, I think it's also a matter of how much budget you have. So sometimes you want to be more aggressive based on the budget that you have. And then as your product grows and your sales grow, you sometimes go back and kind of reset campaigns. And I saw this earlier. Oh, I see it right now. I have some campaigns that are 3 years old. How do you use machine learning with that structure of data? So Brett, this is something we've talked about in great depth. We cover it in our workshop, but like there's a general belief that I want a history of a campaign, that campaign history is valuable. So how much data do I need, and when do I determine that a campaign needs to be reset and started over?
Yeah, so you're looking for some decline or something that's not performing to par. Now, over time, if you're running a campaign well, you're going to be adding in some negatives, and you're going to be taking some keywords out and really trimming it down so it's more lean and more efficient. Eventually, you reach a point where it's so lean, it's at 2% body fat and it's not working well anymore, and you need to bulk up again. And so that's where you've either got to choose to fold those targets that you've cut out back into the mix, or you've got to create a new campaign. Either way works quite well. We choose to usually create a new campaign. You get the benefit of the doubt and a number of other things. But that last answer that I gave, Jeff, I mean, it's not just about cutting out a keyword. It's about isolating it and understanding it. So if you just negate it and forget about it, you're going to not be successful with advertising on Amazon. The goal is to maybe negate it in this instance and then refold it back into the mix in a few weeks or months to make sure you're going after that area again, as long as it's a term that describes your product well.
Yeah, so clearly if the term doesn't describe your product in any way, shape, or form, you want to just negate it. If it's just not performing well, you might want to look into it more. But I think what you covered that's really important is, history is good. But if I'm looking at let's just look at this from an automation standpoint. If I'm looking at 3 years of history on a particular keyword, what do I really care about how that ad performed over Christmas if it's now June?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to start optimizing my bid based on how it performed in Christmas when my conversion rate was 22% when it's really a 12% conversion rate today. So be careful with history of data. It's valuable, but you have to use it effectively. Otherwise, it can kind of lead you astray. Andrew, do you want to cover a little bit about how smart filters kind of work in terms of diving into some of these types of suggestions people are looking for?
Months of learning how things perform and the way things should work, we tried to emulate a lot of that information with those smart filters too. So what we showed earlier is just our suggestions. Well, I shouldn't say suggestions, but our recommendations when it comes to what we have determined as high performance and low performers. And again, that can be modified and tweaked. You know, we're definitely looking at ways to continue to expand how we take the knowledge from the managed service team and incorporate that easily into the Ignite product. But just quickly, it's a way for us to say, hey, we think we know the secret sauce, and we're going to share it with you in a quick way that makes it easy for you to pay attention to what you need to.
All right, we're going to try to roll through some questions quickly. We've got about 5 minutes left before the top of the hour. I want to respect your time. Brett, Seller Central versus Vendors. Oh, my Lord.
Vendor
Seller
Central
versus vendor. Does anything that you say different for one or the other?
Yes, some of the tools have slight differences, you know, whether you're using AAP or the advertising platform, AMS, that type of thing, or whether you're using Seller Central, there can be differences.
Data.
Yes, because in a vendor model, you're not buying that product. You're not figuring out how much to stock. So it takes part of that out of the equation, and you're kind of reliant on Amazon placing those POs.
Great. Rolling out a new brand, would you set an automatic campaign and a sponsored brand ad? How long until you transition to a sponsored product campaign? So product launch, what's the general strategy?
Depends on the category. A hyper competitive one, I wouldn't necessarily get out of the gate with sponsored product. I'd get that item ranking, get it selling organically a little bit, and then really boost it with sponsored products. If it's a new innovative item in a category that hasn't seen innovation like that, get it going today. I mean, if your product really sells itself, it'll work.
Andrew, ACoS over the attribution window, 30-day, 7-day. How do I look at ACoS? Am I looking at it as a 7-day window, a 30-day window?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends. I think you have to have at least 14 days to really understand the campaign performance. And again, this is assuming, to Brett's point, you've had a brand, you've got a product, and you're actually seeing some success with your sponsored product campaigns. 14 days is a good enough attribution window for our suggestions to start really making strong, confident, and strong, important recommendations to help optimize. But the more data, the better, right? So I think the more data that you're willing to actually take and review, I think the stronger those suggestions could potentially be. At a minimum, 7 to 14 days is something that we'd like to prefer to see before we really have enough data to make tangible decisions.
Great. Leonard wanted to know, can you use automation for a product launch, or do you need to get some data before applying automation?
Yeah, so kind of piggyback on that last question, I think it'd be really challenging, right, to automate suggestions right out of the gate. I think what you need to really do is kind of understand first PPC and how it works. If you feel like you've got that confidently and you start trusting and seeing a lot of success from the suggestions that we are recommending, then I definitely think you can move to automation later, but I don't know necessarily if it would work for a product launch. So I would recommend, other strategies that Brett kind of mentioned earlier for a new product. Let that mature, let your advertising strategy mature a little bit. And once we start getting suggestions with confidence scores kind of in the upper echelon of 70, 80, 90%, then you can start looking towards more automation when it comes to saving some time with those two.
Great. I'm going to ask one final poll question as we end the day. How did we do today? It's really important for us to get feedback. Now, here's what I have to ask. If we sucked, don't tell us in the survey, but send me an email. My email is really easy, jeff@sellerlabs.com. Send me an email and tell me what we could have done to do better. I really care about your feedback. And my bonus is based on how I do on this survey. So don't give me a 1 on the survey. Just email me. No, I'm just kidding. I don't get a bonus either which way. But seriously, if there's something we could have done better, you're welcome to reach out. Brett, thank you for offering. I think we've more than filled the 5. I think I'm going to say that if you want to get your assessment in, get it in now. We are going to do these on a first come first serve basis. It may take us a little bit of time to get you guys the results back. But it'll be an opportunity for us to share with you some information about your campaign that you may not already be aware of. Make sure you follow the instructions that are included on this screen. We're going to be coming back with another one of these webinars next month. We're going to be covering campaign structure, I believe. If not, then I'll be corrected later by Caroline. But we'll be covering, I think, campaign structure, and that'll be happening on March 10th. So you can go ahead and mark your calendar. It's going to be titled "Spring Cleaning: How to clean up your campaigns coming out of Q4 and looking to start preparing. Scary enough to start preparing for Prime Day, which will come up sooner than you think. Brett and I will both be at the Prosper Show in Las Vegas and at the end of March. So if you're there, please stop by and say hi. Tell us, come up to Brett and give him a high five and say, "It depends."
Yep.
Answer every question he does with "it depends," just like he does for you guys. And we look forward to connecting with you, seeing you face to face, and connecting with you again on a future webinar. So everybody have a great day, and we look forward to serving you in some way, shape, or form.